So the factual statement, correct, indicates the genesis. It is remarkable that though the proviso to 23(1) was deleted as far back as 1951, there was no challenge to the 51 Act till after the ordinance of 65. Factually correct, Malaz? Nobody challenged it. The reason for this might be that there was practically no substantial change in the administrative setup of the 1920 Act, and it is only when a drastic change was made by the ordinance of 65 followed by the Act that challenge was made not only to the 65 Act but also to the 55 Act, insofar as it did away the proviso of 23(1). So factually, Pasha acknowledges that nothing changed, despite the 51 Act. Acknowledges that fact. And what was the proviso? That all members of the court shall be Muslims. That's the third factual issue. Fourth, page 16, top of the page. The statutes was right. That's term A. May I read it? The statutes were also amended and many of the powers of the court were transferred by the amendment to the Executive Council. Further, the constitution of the court was drastically changed by the amendment of the 8th statute, and it practically became a body nominated by the visitor, except for the Chancellor, the Pro-Chancellor, the members of the Executive Council who were ex officio members, and 3 members of Parliament, 2 to be nominated by the Speaker of the House, and 1 the Chairman of the Council of States. Changes were also made in the Constitution of the Executive Council. Finally, the 65 Act provided that every person holding office as a member of the court or the Executive Council, as the case may be, immediately before the 20th day of 65, shall on and from the said date cease to hold office. It was also provided that until the court and the Executive Council were reconstituted, the visitor may by general or special order direct any officer of the university to exercise the powers. So this tells you, this is the reason for challenge of the 65 Act. Correct, Malaz? That's why it was challenged. Now come to page 17, top of the page, Placetum A. Yes. The words establish and administer in the article must be read conjunctively, and so read it gives the right to the minority to administer an educational institution provided it has been established by it. So that's the statement of the law, provided we have established it. So that's correct also. Then 17, at page 17, Placetum F. We have therefore to consider whether Aligarh Muslim University was established by the minority community, and if it was so established, the minority community would certainly have the right to administer it. So clear, Malaz? That's what they say. So test is only of establishment, nothing more, and at the inception. Correct? So that's page 17. Then come to page 18. No, before we do so, the Placetum paragraph starting before we do so. Before we do so, we should like to say that the words educational institution are a wide import and would include a university also. Please, mothers, mark that. That's the contradiction in Bhasha. I should have read the first paragraph. We shall have to examine. We shall have to examine closely what happened in 1920 when the Act was passed to decide, firstly, whether in the face of that Act, it could be said that the Aligarh University was established by the Muslim minority. According to me, a wrong question asked, and you got the wrong answer. He says, if by virtue of that Act, can you say that the university was established? And that's the answer he gives. So we shall have to examine what happened in 20 when the 20 Act was passed to decide, firstly, whether in the face of the Act it could be said that the Aligarh University was established by the Muslim minority. Secondly, whether the right to administer it ever vested in the minority. It's also wrong. I've shown to your lordships the provisions. Court was all Muslim. Money was there. Executive Council, Academic Council. In the Executive Council, out of 30 members, 23 were Muslim. That's administration. In the academic council, the majority were always Muslim. That's the administration. And three, even if the right to administer some properties that came to the university vested in the minority before the establishment of Aligarh, whether it had surrendered when the Aligarh University, what does that mean? Surrender means what? Whereas if we want to become a university, we'll have to transfer all rights and obligations to the university. There is no other way to become a university. So where's the question of surrender? By virtue of the statute, to be called a university, we have to transfer all rights and obligations of property, teachers, students, everything, which is exactly what we did. Then, before we do so, we should like to say that educational institutions are a wide import and would include a university also. This was not disputed on behalf of the union.
University is an educational institution.
That's right, not disputed. So it comes under 30 sub article 1. That's the point I was making, Madhu. Union of India, and therefore it may be accepted that a religious minority had the right to establish university under 30th Article 1. The position with respect to the establishment of universities before the Constitution came into force in 1950 was this: there was no law in India which prohibited any private individual or body from establishing university, and it was therefore open to the private individual or body to establish university. There's a good deal in common between educational institutions which are not universities and those which are. Both teach students and both have teachers. But what distinguishes a university from the other is that a university grants degrees of its own while the educational institutions cannot. Then come back, Malad, this is what he said. Now, Malad, kindly come back to H. Placetum H. The importance, kindly see. Last, just above H, the importance of the recognition of government in matters of this kind cannot be minimized. The position continued even after the Constitution came into force. It was only in 56, and that's the 22 that your Lordships referred to, my Lord Justice Suryakant. Then kindly come to page 19 at the bottom. Placetum H, it is true. 19 words, it is true, as is clear from the 20 Act, that the nucleus of the Aligarh University was the MAO College. Kindly see, Malad, these are all acceptance of our facts. It is true.
What is it? Which is that?
Page Malad, 19 at the bottom, right. Last paragraph. These are the contradictions in the judgment. It is true that, one second, let me read it. It is true, as is clear from the 20 Act, that the nucleus of the Aligarh University was the MAO College, which was till then a teaching institution under the Allahabad University. The conversion of that college, if we may use that expression, into a university was, however, not by the Muslim minority. What does that mean?
What it says basically is a new institution which has come up.
Naturally, Madhu, there is no other choice in the matter.
Then we'll see how it was incorporated.
It took place by virtue of the 20 Act, which was passed by the Central Legislative Legislature. There is no Aligarh University existing till the 20 Act was passed. It was brought into existence by the 20 Act. This is the logic. So because it was brought into existence, it loses its minority character.
Now, page 20 at Placetum, between A and B, it says it was brought into being by the 1920 Act and must therefore be held to have been established by the Central Legislature, which by passing the 1920 Act incorporated it.
That's right.
This follows the provisions of the 1920 Act, which said to establish and incorporate.
Correct, absolutely.
That's where they get
That's where they get it.
So, to that extent, they are right. The 1920 Act said that the Act is establishing and that it is incorporated.
But Manoj, it doesn't matter because you can establish and incorporate being a minority institution. It doesn't answer that question, Manoj. Any number of statutes now which do that even today. You are incorporated.
University should be brought into existence.
Who determined?
Who determined? Ultimately, when
the Act. Yes, that's the question.
Legislature.
Of course, the legislature determines the university and the conditions are, what are the conditions? That you must have this amount of area, you must have this amount of student teachers, there's be an executive council, there'll be a structure, all that, that's the 1906 conditions. Those are the regulatory conditions. But the choice to set up a university is mine. Now, did the minority set it up or not is the question.
Mr. Sibal, if you come to page 19,
Yeah.
there is one paragraph which is
Yes,
worth reading.
yes,
There was nothing in 1920, the sentence starts like that.
yes, 1920 to prevent the Muslim community, if it so chooses, correct, I'll read it, Mullahs, to establish a university. But if it did so, the degrees of such a university were not bound to be recognized. So where does it take us, Mullahs? What's the use of having?
Therefore, in order to get the degrees recognized by the government,
I had to.
you had to approach. the
Correct,
government.
Mullahs, but that doesn't mean it was established by the government, by the government. That's the question, Mullahs. I had no choice in the matter. If I want to be called and to be a university is my right under 30. And the nucleus came from the college and the property and everything. So the question is, I can't be a university. To be a university is my right under 30. That also Basha accepts. This is the problem.
It's probably that
Sorry?
even it was not disputed before the bench that even before 1956 Act,
Yes,
the degree could be awarded only by a university,
absolutely.
and that university must be recognized by the government. Then only that degree.
That's right, absolutely. No doubt about it, Mullahs. That's
Legal
right.
position.
In other words, Mullahs, if my right exists under 30 and I get it incorporated, I lose my right under 30. That's what it comes to.
I think we're just understanding the logic of the court. What they are saying is that a educational institution includes a university. Aligarh Muslim University, in its character as a university, is established by an act of the central legislature. And because it is established by an act of the central legislature, notwithstanding all the efforts which were made by the Muslim community for, sort of in the movement to set up the college and then convert it into the university, the establishment is by an act of the legislature and not by the Muslim
All right,
community.
but let me answer.
That's the logic.
Correct,
which
but
we
let me
find
answer that straight away.
Yes.
The word established in Article 31 is different from the concept of establishment under an act.